Here we are in 2023, and I don't have to tell you, but we sit here in a Washington that is very divided, facing all sorts of challenges. How should we think about Dr. King's legacy on this day and here in 2023?
On the one hand, we should use this to really celebrate Dr. King and really the civil rights movement, all those people who believed in an America yet to be. So I think it's important to sort of take inspiration from that. But I think the other side of it is really this notion that there is still the great urgency of now, that we need to recognize that what Dr. King really wanted to remind us is that the struggle for fairness, the struggle for racial equality will be an ongoing struggle as long as there's an America.
And today, we always say this, every day that we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King is a day on. It's not a day off. What does that mean? What should it mean to the younger generations of Americans who are just starting to learn about his life and legacy?
In some ways, the notion of a day of service, of recognizing that there's something greater than you, that you can provide help to those that need it, is really important. But I think the other layer is to recognize that this is really an opportunity for younger generations to recognize that they too can change America. That drawing from the civil rights movement, these young kids who demanded America be fair, and they changed America. The recognition is that younger generations now have that burden. And it is a burden and responsibility to carry forward the message that you too can make America better.
When you think about the civil rights of today, you would hear a lot of people talk about voting rights, LGBTQ rights. What do you think, and how do you think Dr. King would see the civil rights fight today?
I think Dr. King had always seen the civil rights as broader than simply racial justice, that it was about economic justice, it was about fairness, it was about increasing who had the opportunity to do well in America. So I think he would have embraced LGBT issues. I think he would have also continued to push the economic foundations that would allow us to cross many racial lines to find that economic justice. So I think Dr. King would still be at the forefront of helping us think about how do we be more inclusive and how do we make the country better.
And how should we think about him? Obviously, we think about Dr. King, we think about his message of nonviolence, but his message was more complicated than that. You're describing part of it. Some people saw him as being a radical in some ways for his time, a disruptor. What are the nuances that often get overlooked about Dr. King's legacy?
I think in some ways, the holiday has taken the rough edges and made them smooth, has forgotten that Dr. King demanded and confronted racial inequality. So his notion was nonviolence, but that doesn't mean you don't confront, that you don't disrupt. And Dr. King never was satisfied with the status quo. And so I think that part of the legacy is that you've got to realize that he's saying challenge, challenge, challenge. But the other part of the legacy is recognizing that he felt that it was important for him to be able to embrace the totality of the American experience, that he was simply asking America to live up to its stated ideals, to demand America live up to its ideals.
You know, it's notable. We were doing some research for this and realized there are two states, Alabama and Mississippi, that celebrate Confederate General Robert E. Lee on this same day. What does that tell you about where we are, how far we have come since Dr. King, and how far we still have to go?
It reminds us that the North won the Civil War but lost the peace. That in essence, the fact that people link this to a holiday to celebrate Robert E. Lee really tells us about the ambivalence many people have. That in essence, the fear is that if you embrace the King holiday, what you're also embracing is a tortured racial past, and you're accepting the fact that you were once a place that needed to be made better, and that challenge is still in front of us.
I wonder if you could just talk personally for a moment. You are the first African-American secretary of the Smithsonian. What did Dr. King mean to you? How does he still inform your work?
In some ways, what Dr. King did was create a sense that there were many things that were possible, that rather than simply accept the status quo, that you could be different. And he inspires me every day because I recognize that I'm standing on his shoulders and shoulders of many other people. So in some ways, Dr. King is a North Star for me, to recognize that you've got to make your institution, make your country better, because you really owe that to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Well, you inspire us, Lonnie Bunch. Thank you for sharing your reflections on this day. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.